The City Council regular meeting for Tuesday, September 5th, 2006 to order. Will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Arbogast.
Here.
Garnis.
Here.
Gisselbeck.
Here.
Heller.
Here.
Johnson. Absent. Meisner.
Here.
Solberg. Walder.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
And York.
Here.
Thank you.
Item number 1 is approve the minutes of the City Council meeting on August 21st of 2006. Have a motion, please. So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 2 is a presentation of an award by the EPA Region 8 representatives to the City Wastewater Department. And Mike Berger, you'll take over.
Thank you, Mayor Fox, members of the council. Tonight we have with us Diane Sinelli and Bruce Sukamil of EPA Region 8 in Denver, and they're here to provide an award to our department.
Mayor and members of the council and other guests, thank you very much for allowing us to be here tonight. My name is Diane Sinelli. I'm a unit chief at EPA's office in Denver, and with me is Bruce Sukamel. Bruce is our program awards manager, and tonight we would like to recognize many of the accomplishments in your community. Can I take just a few minutes and get into a little more detail? I have the special honor of being here today to recognize the accomplishments of your wastewater treatment plant. And most notably, I'm here today to present a first place award for the Clean Water Act Wastewater Management Awards to the City of Watertown and the Watertown Wastewater Treatment Facility. These awards recognize innovative processes and practices at wastewater treatment facilities. The program began actually back in 1985. We wanted to raise public's awareness of what wastewater treatment plants do and why they are important to clean water. Let me just share briefly with you some of the accomplishments of the facility. We had a whole nomination process, and Bruce and others evaluated the facility and did give them an award, actually a first place award. The justifications I'd like to highlight are in 3 primary areas: the collection system maintenance, financial management, and toxic waste controls. And real briefly, the facility implemented aggressive collection system maintenance and repair program. They also, under financial management, did a sewer rate study to finance O&M operations and maintenance, equipment replacement, and debt. They conducted an innovative cost service analysis, and they also implemented an industrial pre-treatment program. This is under the category of toxic waste controls. They also regulated 13 significant industrial users, and they also, through some of their own innovations, identified a problem with zinc, and they were able to take some enforcement against that facility and get back into compliance. So we were very pleased about that. In the words of, I think, the superintendent, if I'm not mistaken, I wanted to point out a couple of things that they pointed out as being quite unique and uncharacteristic and innovative. The City of Watertown takes a holistic approach to its wastewater collection and treatment. Management personnel have taken an aggressive approach to everything, including preventive maintenance, rate structuring, pre-treatment, and plant depreciation and improvement costs. This approach has produced exceptional operation, maintenance, and financing of the Watertown Wastewater Treatment Facility. For these reasons, we would very much like to recognize all of you. And with that, I do have some awards that we'd like to present. And Mayor, if you don't mind, this first one is for you. I know Mike's here, so I'd like to present you with yours as well. Oh, I'm sorry, this is still to the mayor. Okay. There you go. Mike, this is yours.
Thank you.
And there are others here?
Yep.
Okay, I'll just read some names. Craig Mitchell. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Earl Hopkins.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Larry Rode.
you. Roadies.
Rhodey, did I say that correctly? Jim Steffen.
Not present.
Did he make it? Okay, maybe you could share those with Joe Dane. No? Okay. Mark Jordan? No? Oh, should I just have you look
Yep,
first?
yep. Yes.
Bruce McGee. Thank you very much. Bob Jennett. Thank you. Oh, I like that shirt. Joe Dalton. Thank you, Joe. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Larry Howard. Thank you, Larry. Very much.
That would be the last one here today.
Oh, okay. And here are a couple more then.
Okay.
If you would please recognize them, we'd appreciate it
I
very
sure will.
much. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, very much.
Thank you very much, and I guess we should give Mike and the crew a happy
Well
hands.
done.
Yeah, job well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 3 is emergency management update by Jim Sutton.
Good evening, Mayor Fox and councilmen and councilwomen. This evening, I had to appear here before you as a state requirement. Through the Office of Emergency Management, I'll just tell you a little bit about emergency management if you aren't aware of it. But half of my salary and the Deputy Director of Emergency Management, half of her salary is reimbursed to the county by the state of South Dakota. And they do that using funds from the federal government. So as part of our requirements for receiving this money, we have to do certain things, and this briefing tonight is one of the things that we're required to do to all the city governments and the county commissioners of each county. In this briefing tonight, I'm going to talk about the disaster process that we have in place. Last winter in November, we got to experience some of this firsthand, but just in case that you aren't quite aware of how that process works, I'm going to explain it here briefly tonight. The first thing that happens is we have a disaster like we did last November with the ice storm, and I have to notify the State Office of Emergency Management that we've got significant damage to our area. Now, we go out and we assess the damage, and if we can show that in this area, like we did last winter, that we have at least $1 million of damage to public infrastructure, then FEMA we can apply for FEMA assistance. Now, if we have less than $1 million, we can't meet that threshold. Now, as far as state assistance, that's another thing. By state law, we have to show that we have expended 2 mills of our county evaluation before state assistance is authorized by state law. And our valuation last year, I went to the courthouse, and the property in Cottington County, we had an assessed value of $1,310,540,420. So 2 mills of that, we would have to show that we had expended $2,621,000 out of the county budget for public assistance before state aid would be authorized. So it actually, it's easier to get to federal assistance than it is state assistance in this case. So that's the reason that you usually hear about FEMA coming in to assist, is that it's very hard to meet that threshold for state assistance. When we have a situation like we did last November, all the paperwork has to be processed through the Office of Emergency Management. Like if, say for instance, we had a tornado that struck Watertown, the mayor would be talking to me. I'd have to go to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners have to declare a disaster within our county. And at that point, we take this disaster declaration from the county commissioners. I have to write up a letter of support, and then that's sent to the State Office of Emergency Management, and it's forwarded on to the governor's office. And at that time, the governor processes the request, and after his staff has determined that we meet the threshold, then he requests a presidential disaster declaration for the particular event. When we're dealing with an event like we did last November, one of the key things that we really have to remember is that we have to have very accurate record keeping. Before we can show expenses, we have to have the records to back it up. Be it money that we've paid out for fuel or labor or renting equipment or tree removal, like in the case of last year. We have to show that we actually had that expense, and we do that with accurate record keeping. See here, I'm kind of checking to make sure that I've covered everything I need to cover here tonight. Also, along with the accurate record keeping, it's important that the department heads take pictures of the damage. It's easy to talk about damage at a later time. It's another thing to be able to show the pictures of the damage or a video of the damaged areas. So if there's questions later on, if FEMA has questions when they're in here assessing the damage and working with us, we can actually show them pictures of the damage that occurred at that time, because in many cases when there's power lines down over highways and so forth, we have to to correct that right away. It can't lay there in place until somebody can come and examine the damage. So it's very critical that we document the damage with pictures and videos, and that we can use later on our disaster request. And I guess as far as the disaster declaration process, I think I've covered everything pretty much, and you people have worked with this in the past, but the thing to remember that we have to do is you have to recognize that we have a disaster, which is quite obvious, but then it has come to me. I have to get the disaster declaration document in place, go before the county commissioners. They have to declare that disaster, and then that has to be forwarded on to PEER. So that's kind of the steps that we take when we have a disaster like we did last November. Also, earlier this summer when we were dealing with the drought disaster with the lack of hay and pasture in the county, we went through the same process with that request. The last things I'm going to talk about this evening is just a little update on the ICS training that we've been doing within the county. It's required that all first responders and officials have basic ICS 100, 200, and the NIMS 700 course. I'm pleased to say that we've made great strides in the county with these classes. The last scheduled basic class that we have here in Watertown is tomorrow and the following day for the ICS 100, 200 class. For any of you that haven't taken the class, you're welcome to come out tomorrow and the next day and be there for that class. Or if you want to take it online, you can go on the FEMA website and take it at home at your own leisure. Now, the federal government is mandating that we do this ICS training, and they're starting to tie this to the grants that we're applying for, like the Homeland Security grant, Another one that I was told, I haven't seen this in paper, but like a community development block grant. If you apply for a grant such as this, they're tying this ICS training to that type of stuff, and it's going to come to a point that if a jurisdiction hasn't made an effort to train their personnel, that they aren't going to qualify for this grant money. And you know, they really haven't put a specific number, you know, like you have to have 95% of your people trained. I've never seen anything like that. I think that we just have to show that we're making a very good effort to, you know, train our people within our jurisdiction. And I know the city of Watertown has been very cooperative, and you've worked to, you know, train your people. And Mayor Fox was at one of our training sessions. So I appreciate the support the city of Watertown's been giving on the ICS training. Like I said, we started out with the basic classes. Now this fall we're going to be offering like ICS 300, which would be department heads and supervisors, and then there's another class that we'll have to offer after that one's completed. It's the ICS 400 class, and then we should be setting pretty good as far as the ICS requirement with the federal government. But any questions on the disaster process or the ICS training that we're going through? Okay.
Thank you very much, Jim. You do a
Thank you,
great
Mayor.
job.
Yep.
Whoops. Agenda item number 4 is an update from Geotech Engineering and Testing Services on the brownfields assessment of the former manufactured gas plant site. Herb?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'll be real brief here, but I just wanted to let you know that for the last couple of years, the City of Watertown Municipal Utilities has been working with South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources and Geotech Engineering by taking advantage of the EPA's brownfields funding to conduct a site assessment at the old manufactured gas plant site, which was over by Metz Bakery. Municipal Utilities operated this site for several years in the mid-40s. I provided the council an email copy of an executive summary that was produced late last week. Also put a copy at your desktop. Tonight the intent is to provide a brief update on the status of the site assessment and where we intend to go from here. I'm pleased to introduce Kim McIntosh from Department of Environment and Natural Resources and Dan Hansen from Geotech Engineering. They'll be providing the update. I'd ask Kim to go ahead and come up to the mic, and we'll get going here.
Hi, thank you for having me tonight. I'm Kim McIntosh. I'm with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources out of Pierre. And as Herb said, we've been working with the City of Watertown on the former manufactured gas plant assessment and cleanup. And I guess what I just want to do is just take a couple seconds to talk about the funding that we've been using. The state of South Dakota received some federal brownfields funds. Brownfields are sites across the nation that are either underutilized or potentially contaminated, and so therefore people have fears or worries about purchasing those properties and redeveloping them. And we were contacted, and we actually knew about the property for some time, and then we were contacted by the Watertown Development Company and asked to provide some assistance, financial assistance in completing some assessment work, and we'll proceed into helping with also finance some of the cleanup on the project. Our funds, the state funds, are 100% state dollars. There's no match from the city on those funds. We are allowed to spend approximately $200,000 to do the assessment on the particular property, and we will actually then have funds available to assist for $200,000 in the cleanup of this property as well. So once again, those are state dollars that come to us from the federal government. There's no match to the locals for that fund. And I think unless anybody has any questions about brownfields, I won't go into any detail other than to say that the site qualified and we were happy to be able to provide some financial assistance on on a tough project, and I think Dan Hansen will go in and explain just a little bit more of some of the work that we've been doing for the last 2 years using these funds, and then a little bit of information on where we're going in the future and what we're thinking for cleanup and how that's going to proceed. So feel free to ask any questions or jump in at any time. Thanks.
Yeah, just open it up. Good evening, thanks for having us. Herb kind of mentioned that the city actually, this plant was opened around the turn of the century, and it produced a gas that was distributed through the town for lighting and heating purposes before we had natural gas and those types of things. And it's pretty common. Sioux Falls had one here and had one. Aberdeen had one. The city actually bought it in about '43, and I think it only operated for a year or two before it was switched to I think it was a butane plant. And the city's owned it since then, and it was the transfer to the Watertown Development Corporation in 2004. And this is the site. I suppose we got a pointer. I don't know if anybody can see that. I don't know if everybody knows where it's at. If you can see this, the gas plant actually sat here, right next to the Mets of the Old Home Bakery. We've done some assessment work out there, and in addition to the plant, we discovered that there was an old map that showed this well, and we believe this was was used as a disposal well to dispose of some of the waste actually into the well. But we've identified some contamination out there. There's some certain compounds or heavier compounds that actually sink in the water table. So we've done an assessment. Basically, these dots on here are where we drilled test holes and we put in some wells, test wells, and where we've tried to define where contamination is, where it's not. And the next phase in this is to do some cleanup of the contaminants. And really what we're looking at for cleanup is source removal, and that's up here by the plant, and then down here by this disposal well. A lot of the contamination is at depth, actually below the water table, and we will not be addressing that. It's very expensive, time-consuming, hard to get to. We're really looking at source materials. And there's also some surface soil contamination that does exceed some EPA standards that we will address too. Potentially removal of that, either disposal or placing that lower in the soil profile so it's not exposed to humans. Next step in the process is we'll put together a plan for remediation, some documents to bid this project. The project will actually be bid by the Watertown Development Corp. We will do some public notification through the paper and some of the surrounding residents. What we're looking for cleanup is doing some excavation of this contaminated material. And there will be some odors associated with that, and I describe it as a creosote type odor is what it smells like, and it's pretty distinct odor that you will get. We're not looking at large excavations. We do anticipate that we'll have some odor concerns and try to communicate that ahead of time. If it gets a big problem, we'll just cover up so we can control those. The schedule is we hope to bid this in October with a June 2007 completion date. See, some additional action items is there likely after we do this cleanup, there will likely be some continued groundwater monitoring required by the state of South Dakota. That may go on for several years. And then, since we're not removing all the contamination, there may have to be some institutional controls placed on the property. You wouldn't be able to put a water well in to pump water out of the ground. and there's potentially some surface soil contaminants that if you dig on that site, you might have to follow some guidelines. Anybody have any questions?
How far down is the contamination before you reach it?
Before you, the top or the bottom?
The bottom.
Out here, you're out in, you have some sand, or some fairly decent sand, and then you hit the hard pan down about 20 to 30 feet, and it actually goes down through the sand and it sets on that hard
I
pan.
see. And what's going to be removed is just the top.
Basically, yeah, just stuff that we can get into, really where those source areas where it got into. On the coal gas site, they had a structure called a gas holder. It's about 30 feet in diameter, and it's about 16 feet deep in the ground. And that's where they produce the gas. It had a floating lid. And there's probably a fair amount of actual tar and residual contaminants in there. That's one of the sources we want to get out of there. And so we'll take that out. There'll be some structures, some subsurface structures, and then we'll try to take some contaminated soil out around that. But a lot of it gets to the water table and below, and it's very difficult to deal with it below the water table.
We were just looking at some of the estimated prices on here. Hauling it to Brookings, $79,000. How do you haul this that it's, $79,000 to Brookings?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of material. It's 6,600 tons, and so it's many truckloads of material. There's other options, and we valued some other options, but this, believe it or not, is one of the more cost-effective options.
Any other questions?
Yes, the yellow markings, are they being monitored now?
We haven't sampled for a while, but it will be continued to be. We don't sample all the time, but actually,
What have you found in those areas then?
okay. Basically, what we tried to do with the assessment was actually surround, and there's actually some more that don't show up on the map, on this map, just because of the way it fit on the PowerPoint. We try to get wells around this that surround it, so we can show where it's clean at, and we've done that. There's one little exception. There's one down in here that has a little bit of a contamination. This one, and there's a boring down further that shows it's clean. So that's what we tried to do with the assessment, is put our arms around it.
And what was your reason for not putting it in our landfill?
There's been a lot of discussion on this, okay? And I don't know if you want me to address it or.
I'd ask Mike Berger to come up, and I think between Mike and I, we can probably talk through the rationale on why we didn't. We've got some additional regulatory controls at our landfill that, because of stormwater monitoring, this creates a real issue, and we could possibly take it in, but we'd have to have some very, very tight controls at the site to be able to make sure if we had a rainstorm, for instance, like we did over the weekend, and you brought this material into the landfill and put it where we would want to do it, it would have created a real mess, and we would have had contamination on adjoining property. So the Brookings site is set up quite a bit differently in terms of the way they handle contaminated waste, and they're more readily capable to take it than we are at this point in time.
And they have also a reduced tipping fee for this type of waste. Their municipal solid waste fee is, I think, $6 to $7 a ton higher than ours, but they normally handle this type of material, the contaminated soil, and their rate for this is about half of the rate of stuff going into our landfill.
I was sure you had checked it out, both, everybody, but
Yeah.
just had to know the facts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anyone else have any questions? You may proceed.
Well, as we had said, the schedule is to try to bid this project in October with a completion date in June. Of course, that may slide a little bit depending on contractor schedules and when we get the bid documents out. I would expect that in the next couple of months, we'll be putting together the informational pamphlets for the adjoining neighbors, and trying to let the public know what we're doing and why we're doing it and explain that to them. We've had a great working relationship with your staff, Mayor, and we really appreciate that. They've been awesome. Other than that, I guess those are really, other than to go into painstaking detail about the assessment, which I don't know if you want to hear all that, but you can definitely contact us if you have any questions. Dan Hansen or I, either one, or you know, Herb, of course, knows the intricacies of this project as well. So.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 5 is consideration of bids received for the police department shop roof replacement project. Dave Haig.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. I brought Dave Hose with me tonight, and hopefully he has some photos if there's any questions about the damage that this roof is yet incurring, and he can more adequately explain the damage too. But we received one bid for the project from Todd Cordell of Cordell Construction. The bid amount was $48,617.10. That's actually $3,617.10 over what we had budgeted for the project. And just to give you a little bit of an explanation of how we arrived at what we budgeted and how we arrived at the figure that was actually bid, we began drafting this budget over a year and a half ago. And when we did, we considered a couple of things. We considered the shop roof project that was actually going on at the street department at the time. Their building is comparable to ours, is slightly smaller, but we considered the cost that they had to replace their roof along with some additional costs that we would need to replace ours because of the added dimensions. And we also talked to a contractor, and he was pretty confident that if we budgeted $45,000, that would pay for the project. And again, as I said, that was a little over a year and a half ago when we began the process of building this budget. Since then, the cost of business has gone up a little bit, variety of things, labor costs, fuel costs. But one of the big stumbling blocks that we encountered this summer was that there's actually some heating and plumbing and ductwork up in the roof of that shop that's going to require more extensive labor to replace than what we had originally thought. That chimney there being one of them. Those are going to have to be extended up through the new roof rather than dismantled. We were originally under the assumption that we could dismantle that and do away with it relatively easily. There's actually more chimneys and sewer vents and ducting up there than what this picture shows, but they will all have to be extended up through the roof. One of the other big problems that we ran into, we knew that there's a very old heating and air conditioning unit on the roof. What we didn't know then, and we now know, is that that's actually going to require the rent of a crane to get that off the roof, which again significantly increased the cost of our bid. So with those, and then the other thing here that Dave has got up on the screen now is the staggered roof. That poses some unique construction problems in that some little, I'm not a carpenter or a builder, but some stub walls are going to have to be built in those little steps to make the entire roof flat or parallel so that they can put the rafters on and fit it on. The other thing that we found out.
To add to that, they did say this roof cap at the top of the cement block may have to also come off all the way around the building.
Yeah, that's actually what I was just going to explain. There's a cement cap up there that's going to have to be manually removed too. Otherwise, the plates of the rafters won't fit flush down on top of that. So those things have come up that weren't discovered last summer when we budgeted for this, that have added to the cost. Overall, we really aren't that high over budget anyway, all things considered. There's, as one of the prime examples of why we need to do this project rather quickly, there's a few locations in the building where you can see the damage that we're suffering because of the leaky roof. There's mold on the walls that's posing some health problems. We can't replace the ceiling tiles on the inside because the next time it rains it's ruined again. One of my biggest concerns is that someday the overall structure of this roof is going to be degraded enough that if we get the right snow load, that roof could actually fail, and then we'd end up with a destroyed building.
So what you're requesting is an additional authority to spend, what, $3,500?
Yes, sir, I am. It's actually $3,817.10.
Okay.
$617.10, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I guess I would respectfully ask for permission to expend the extra amount to get this done. The dangers, I'm sorry, Mayor, that if we rebid, there's no guarantee we'll get another bid beyond what we already have. There's no guarantee it'll come in any cheaper, but the biggest danger of rebidding now is that it probably won't get done this construction season before the snow flies.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a motion then to approve the additional expense for the roof repair? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is a consideration of a call for quotes for a fire department rescue truck body. Mike Youngman.
Good evening. We initially get called for bids on this particular body the 29th of August at 10 a.m. and at 10 a.m. we had no bids. I have since talked to a couple different organizations that do build these, and they would be interested in quoting it at this point, but they didn't feel initially that they knew exactly what they needed to do on the bid process. There's an organization here in town, B&G Welding, that'd be very interested in pursuing this, but they had never seen the body. Today they had an opportunity to see a body up in Millbank Fire Department, very comparable to what we're looking for, and they feel they're very capable of building that, but until they'd had a chance to take a look, they didn't want to commit to anything. So what I'm asking for permission to go ahead and seek quotes now rather than bids.
Is there a motion then to allow Mike to go and solicit quotes for the? So moved by Alderman Gizelbeck. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any further questions or discussion? Again, this is just quotes. Is that
That's
correct, Mike?
correct.
Okay. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Item number 7 is the first reading of ordinance number 06-20, Casino Speedway property rezoning. Sarah.
Excuse me. Okay, this is an ordinance amending the zoning district boundaries by rezoning certain real property from R1 Single Family Residential District to I2 Heavy Industrial District. This property is located on South Lake Drive by City Park, the Casino Speedway. The Plan Commission recommended approval of this rezone with conditions, and I've placed the Plan Commission resolution at your desk. It has the conditions written in red. I'll read those to you. The owner, his heirs, successors, or assigns will, within 90 days of property ceasing to operate as a speedway, voluntarily petition to rezone the property from I2 Heavy Industrial back to R1 Single Family Residential. The seating capacity may not be increased. The speedway will operate for no more than 21 days or events per year, as long as owned by Benson Enterprises Incorporated. And any owner other than Benson Enterprises Incorporated must request permission of the City of Watertown Plan Commission to operate more than 21 days or events per year. And I would like to add that in your packet, I showed you a draft ordinance which includes those conditions. I'm not sure if that's what we'll actually be doing at the next council meeting, if it'll be part of the ordinance or if we'll have a separate document, but Earl Benson of Benson Enterprises has agreed to these conditions, and we will have some sort of document that he'll sign to that effect. And how that happens right now is just not clear.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
The 21 days, they're not continuous 21 days. They
No.
are 21 days of action or total
That's what he operates now, is 21 days or events per year.
per year.
And it's in the summer, late spring, early fall. It's this time of year. He doesn't do it in the winter.
This proper description of the property doesn't include the houses to the west?
No, it does not.
And again, Mr. Benson has agreed to these conditions? That's correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sarah. Then it's first reading, and so then the next reading will take place
At the 18th.
18th? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8. It's the Dakota Commons 4th edition. And Sarah again?
This is an annexation of a piece of the Dakota Commons development, the master plan of which was adopted by the city previously, and I can bring a picture of that up. On the screen is the overall plan for this whole development, and they've been annexing in pieces as they develop. This particular annexation is this piece right here. It's a PUD zoning, and right now we're suggesting that it be annexed without a zoning designation. It's merely an annexation. Zoning will be handled separately.
Would you like-
For our viewing audience, could you describe where the location is, please?
Sure, this is 19th Street Northeast on the outside of the project, and on the north boundary is 3rd Avenue North up here. And you can, this has a gate right now, Dakota Commons, and they have, the road goes in up to this first development, this first cul-de-sac on the north, and then it stops. This blue area is in, and then this is what we're annexing with this resolution right here.
I might also point out, just across 19th Street from the western edge of this, you would find the Human Service Agency as an orienting reference.
If we have any other questions for the annexation, if not, we'll go for the resolution number 06-40. Is there a motion to approve the annexation? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Sarah?
Okay, we have the first reading of ordinance number 621 establishing the zoning designation, and I don't have that handy. See if I can find it. Here we go. An ordinance amending zoning district boundaries by establishing zoning designation of PUD, Planned Unit Development District, for certain real property annexed into the city in the northwest quarter of section 33-11752. So it's the same area. The PUD zoning was the zoning that was approved in the overall master plan.
Are there any questions from the council to Sarah? Pretty straightforward, so thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Agenda item number 9 is the first reading of ordinance number 06-22, the 2007 city budget. And Tracy?
Thank you. Before the meeting began tonight, I placed a copy of the proposed budget ordinance at each of your spaces there, so you have that for your review. This ordinance reflects the proposed budgets as presented by the mayor during our budget hearings at the end of August. There were, I believe, 3 minor changes that were made. The first was the change that the council approved during the budget hearings to the funding for the Watertown Area Transit. There was also a change made to the mosquito control budget that was requested by Roger Adams, and then the third and final change that was made was a change in the amount of the property tax levy. The final values for the centrally assessed properties were provided last week, and that actually resulted in a very slight decrease in the city's total property tax levy for next year. So with those changes, this ordinance presents the budget as you had reviewed it, and if you have any questions, I would certainly try to answer them. There's no action required tonight. There will be second reading at our next meeting on the 18th, and we'll be looking for your approval at that time.
Thank you, Tracy. Agenda item number 10 has been withdrawn to a later date. That was Lanew's third edition plat approval resolution 06-42. And again, that was withdrawn to a later date. Agenda item number 11 is consideration of amendment to section 8.04 of the city personnel policy manual. And Tracy?
Thank you, and you should have a copy of this in your agenda packet. Just a very, very minor change in the wording to the policy regarding categories of employees that are exempt from overtime. You can see we are striking the employees that are work for the summer recreation programs, and that's really a reflection of a fairly recent clarification that we received from the U.S. Department of Labor as to how those particular positions should be handled. I would ask for your approval.
Is there a motion then to, for the amendment, section 8.04? So moved by Alderwoman Walder, seconded by Alderman Garnos. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 12 is consideration of an increase in the ambulance mileage rate from $9 a loaded mile to $10 a loaded mile. Mike Youngerman?
Good evening again. This actually comes as a recommendation from the health analytics study that was performed earlier by Mick Gunderson out of Florida, and the recommendation was to increase to 10 miles. Presently, at this point, Medicare is willing to pay $9.17 per loaded mile, and our present rate is only $9. So even though that 17 cents per mile doesn't seem like a lot, with the amount of miles we cover, is somewhere around the $34,000 a year additional that we would collect by increasing to $10 a mile. And the one thing that Medicare has been willing to look at historically is what they're willing to pay for Medicare. Typically, they're not very interested in raising overall base rates, but they have historically increased the mileage. So by us going to 10, it will give us the opportunity to increase as they increase for a little while without having to come before you every time they make an adjustment.
Okay. Is there a motion then to approve the $9 to $10 a mile loaded rate?
Motion.
Motion by Alderman Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any questions or discussion for Mike? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Item number 13 is approval of a contingency account budget transfer to the Senior Citizen Center improvements and to correct a mold problem in Herb.
Thank you, Mayor. City was approached on August 14th about a mold issue in a couple of the outer walls of a storage room behind the kitchen at the Senior Citizen Center. This issue had been identified during a previous inspection conducted by Interlakes Community Action. I approached the Finance Committee with an initial estimate and a description of work that needed to be accomplished. The committee recommended that I solicit a couple of additional quotes, which I did. I'm here tonight to request the authorization of a $2,000 contingency transfer and authorization to allow the low bidder Kraus Construction to proceed to get the work done to correct the problems over there.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that
So moved
motion.
by Alderman Garno, seconded by Alderwoman York. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Herb. Next, item number 14 is consideration of a contract change order number 1, the final, to the contract with ProTech Roofing for the Community Recreation Center re-roof project. Dave?
Good evening. This is a request for approval of the change order in the amount of $1,310. This is the final change order. The only change in the contract was they replaced all of the gravel stop around the edge of the roof. It was proposed that they were going to reuse what was there, but it wouldn't come off without being damaged, so we're asking for your approval of this change order for $1,310.
Is there a motion to that effect? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave. Item number 15 is consideration of a contract change order number 1 to the contract with AP and Sons for the 2006 sanitary sewer replacement project. Dave?
This is a not the final change order, but an incremental change order in the amount of $2,660.50 for additional work completed. There was a additional sanitary sewer that needed to be replaced on the one line. We were matching up with the existing sewer. We weren't replacing the total line, so we had to go a little bit farther to match up. And there also was a water service that needed to be disconnected at the main, so we're asking for this change order approval.
Is there a motion to allow this change order approval? So moved by Alderwoman Walder. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Wilson. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave. Item number 16 is consideration of an application for Sunday liquor sales from Jennifer Kasuski for 2nd Street Station. I think most of us are familiar with that location, and asking to be given the application for Sunday liquor sales. Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderwoman York. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Heller. Any questions or discussion? It obviously meets all the necessary requirements, so all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 17 is consideration of a swimming pool agreement for the 2006-2007 school year. John Small.
Mayor, I can address that.
Okay, thank you,
This
Tracy.
is a renewal of a long-standing agreement between the city and the school district, sharing the use of the indoor swimming pool and providing for a payment by the school district to the city to help defray the operating costs. The school district pays, under this agreement, will pay $20,000 to the rec center that will cover the 2006-2007 school year.
Is there a motion then to approve that pool agreement? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Heller. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 18 is consideration of business licenses application for Randy Phillips for a taxi cab driver for $25 fee and Peter Kopis for a taxi cab driver for a fee of $25. Could I have a motion then to approve those applications? So moved by Alderwoman Walder. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 19 is a motion to acknowledge the notice of intent to conduct a raffle by the Watertown chapter of Ducks Unlimited. Could we have a motion then to acknowledge the raffle?
Motion to approve the raffle.
Motion by Alderwoman York. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll need a motion to approve the bills and payroll and authorize payment. So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next on the open, we have two items. In regards to the Civil Service Board, Deb Popham asked to be relieved because of work requirements, and I've asked Will Morlock to serve on that, which he graciously said he would. So I'd ask for the council's approval for Will Morlock to serve on the Civil Service Board. Could I have a motion, please? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck and seconded by Alderman Garnos. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The second item on the open is a notice of intent to conduct a raffle by the Knights of Columbus. Could I have a motion to acknowledge that intent to conduct a raffle? So moved by Alderman Heller and seconded by Alderman Solberg. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 22 is old business. Is there any old business to come before the council? If not, item number 23 is new business. Is there any new business to come before the council? Item number 24 is liaison member reports. Does anyone have any member reports for us this evening? We will need to go into executive session to discuss negotiations. I'd like to request a motion to allow us to go into executive session. So moved by Alderwoman Walder. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We will go into executive session. Thank you.